ISO 27001 certification costs. So I'm Stuart Barker, the ISO 27001 Ninja, and we're going to take a deep dive into the costs associated with ISO 27001 certification, the kind of things that you can expect, the kind of hidden fees that there are, and how this thing all hangs together and what you can expect to pay. So starting off, what is ISO 27001? ISO 27001 is the international standard for information security. It is a management system looking at how you manage information security, the risks associated with it, and how you mitigate it. What is ISO 27001 certification? Certification is the independent verification that you are doing the right thing and meeting the requirements of the standard. Now, there are two types of certification. There is standard certification and there is accredited certification, and we'll cover those on another topic. But for now, this cost module is going to look at the cost of ISO 27001 accredited certification. So what is the process of 27001 certification? It's a two-stage certification test in effect. Stage one is going to look at your information security management system, the documentation, whether or not it looks like you're doing the right thing. And the output of that is going to be a recommendation, the recommendation to proceed to stage two. And ISO 27001 stage two is going to look at the processes that you have in a lot more detail. So they are going to review the documentation that you have, and they're going to watch you and observe you going through the processes to evidence that you are doing what you should be doing. So how much does certification cost? Now, we talked about looking at accredited certification. When you go for accredited certification, the accredited certification bodies themselves have to be certified and they have to follow certain rules. Now, in the blog that goes along with this, I will put the link at the bottom of the YouTube. All of the detail is in there, all of this is in there, but there's also in there a table that shows you what it is that they are working to. And that table directly dictates the cost, right? So what it does is it breaks it down per number of employees, and then for the number of employees that you have, there is a guidance that the audit companies go through in terms of the number of days that they should audit you for, and obviously then there is a cost associated with that. The cost will vary per certification body based on the fact that their day rates are different, but the number of days should be roughly the same. So let me give you an indication. If I've got 1 to 10 employees, so that's one-man band through to 10 employees, the guidance is that they spend 5 audit days with you. Now, at this low end of the scale, it sets the bar very, very high, right? It sets the cost very, very high for the smaller organization. It's one of the things I hate about the standard. So if a typical day rate for a certification body is £1,000 a day, you're going to be looking at £5,000 worth of estimated certification cost. The standard that they adhere to does allow some flex up and down on the days, but typically they will match what the guidance says. So the cost of certification for a small organisation, 1 to 10 people, is going to be around about £5,000, and then it goes up in increments. So if you have an organisation of 11 to 15 people, you can expect 6 audit days and a cost of around about £6,000. If you have 16 to 25 people, 7 audit days and a cost of around £7,000. The table is going to be linked in the blog that's below. And you can go through that, and it takes you all the way up to international sized organisations. What is the cost of ISO 27001 certification in the UK? Again, typical costs, again, it's going to be dependent on your size. You're going to be working around £5,000 for a small organisation, but typically people are spending around about £8,000. You're going to have to speak to the certification body and get them to quote for you. As I say, some of the certification bodies have a lower day rate, a little bit more flex in some of those hidden add-ons, whether or not they add them or not, but under guidance. What kind of costs are there for 27001 in general? So if I'm looking at 27001 and what is my total cost, we've got 3 categories of cost, right? The cost of implementing ISO 27001. We've got the cost of taking the ISO 27001 certification audit, and then we've got the cost of maintaining that ISO 27001. If I look at the certification costs in a little bit more detail, let me break down those certification costs for you. There are 4 categories of ISO 27001 certification costs. The cost of the actual certification, so the cost to take the test, the cost of implementing the ISO 27001 and building your information security management system, the cost of running the ISO 27001 information security system, and then annual audit fees. Yes, there are going to be annual audit fees. This isn't just a one and done. Okay. So if we look at the implementation costs, you've got different ways of going about that. You know, you could do it yourself. If you do it yourself with the ISO 27001 Ultimate Toolkit, you're going to be looking around about £500 for the toolkit, and then weekly Q&As that are included that for free. So, you know, you've got a very low cost option. You could use one of my unique services that's not on my website, but I actually have a 27001 coached, and it's a structured 10-step process with the outcome being you would have an effective running information security management system. You can contact me for costs on that. You could, some people, you know, employ somebody. The costs of employing somebody are astronomical. You know, you can have a look at the rates of a full-time employee at the moment, and to be honest with you, it's overkill. It doesn't really need it, but you could do that. If I was going to put a finger in it at this current time, 2023, I'd probably say the minimum you're going to be looking at £40,000 to £60,000 per annum for an employee. Or you could go with a contractor, right? If you go with a contractor day rates £500, £600, £700 a day. Depends how many days they're going to be doing it. Typically, we see people spending, you know, between £40,000 and £120,000 on that, just because contractors are there like an employee, right? Whether they're working or not, you're paying them for their day rate. The more traditional approach to go for implementation is to use an ISO 27001 consultant. I've been one. I still potentially am one. I know many and can put you in touch with them. Consultants tend to be a good route if you just want it doing. You know, they will typically just do it, handhold you through the process, potentially sit in on the exam with you. Costs for that vary. Again, there are some good consultants out there, some good rates. You're probably going to be looking around about the £10,000 to £20,000 mark. Let's say an average of £15,000 for a consultant to take care of the problem for you. What are other costs that you could look at? The cost of online platforms. I'm going to do a different blog on that. I'm not going to touch that today, right? I mean, these online platforms that, you know, they are what they are. They're built into recurring revenue models. They don't necessarily come with the skills that you need, as in the resource and the experience. You know, they do what they do. We see clients typically being charged anywhere between £10,000 and £20,000 a year for these tools. I'm going to do a different blog on that, on a video on another day. The certification audit and the certification audit costs are going to be your biggest cost, you know, by far. If I look at, I said it's an annual audit. If you want to know the cost of surveillance audits, so these are in year 2 and year 3, the certification body will audit you and do a mini version of the audit. That's called a surveillance audit, continuing verification audit, different names for it. The typical costs associated that will be 1/3 your initial fee, give or take. So if you've been paying £5,000 to £6,000 for your first year 1 certification, you know, 1/3 of that, you could be looking at maybe £1,500 a day and a half, you know, £1,500. So budget in there 1/3 of your initial certification fee for the next 2 years, and then you will have your recertification cost in year 3, and that is going to be the whole thing all over again, right? So again, budget for what you paid in year 1, and then add on some inflation, rate rises, but it's going to be in the same ballpark, right? So year 1 full, and then continuing, and then full, typically is how it works. So there are a lot of costs that are ongoing around that. If I look at some common mistakes that people make, when it comes to costing and certification is not knowing what you need. I say this is probably the number one. You know, not looking at what the options are in terms of solutions that are out there, getting sucked in by marketing and believing, you know, you can do this 30 times and 5 times, and, you know, I do it. To be honest with you, you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, I do it. But a lot of these platform solutions will promise you the earth and then fail to deliver. If it works for you, go for it. If it doesn't, then shop around, right? Understand what it is that you need. The number one mistake, not knowing what you need. The number 2 mistake is not shopping around, right? You know, I would say to anybody that comes on my calls, comes on my free weekly Q&A, is get 3 quotes, right? Don't just believe either my marketing or my costing. Don't believe the marketing and costing of other people out there. Shop around. You've got to find the right solution for you from the right solution provider with the right people at the right cost, right? So, you know, there are many solutions out there other than me. I may be the 27001 ninja, but I'm not the only show in town. What are the things that are going to affect your certification costs? So we said that there is guidance, right? They're giving you guidance. They're giving the certification bodies guidance on the number of days, but there are other things that can up that and down that. The things that can influence that are the scope of your certification. So what it is that you've included in your scope is going to directly and proportionately affect, you know, your costings. The size of your organization, clearly the general guidance is based on the number of employees, but the size of your organization will impact the cost. The number of locations. Typically, if you have a physical location, the auditors are going to visit that location. So what that means is you've probably got some travel and living expenses to cover for them. You've got the cost of them spending time there, and they're going to visit that. Other things that can impact the cost, the certification body you choose. As I say, some certification bodies will add on hidden fees and management fees and certification, you know, continuing fees and all kinds of crazy fees. So what I would say is shop around when it comes to the certification bodies, understand what their fee structure is, and try and compare that with competitors, and then again choose the one that's right for you. So it is a bit pricey, right? I mean, there's no two ways around it. There is no two ways around it. My advice would be to probably have a go at doing it yourself, see how far you can get. Most of the people that are watching my videos, most of the people that are engaging on my YouTube, viewed tens of thousands of times, I've got thousands of subscribers. Most of those people come from a tech background, they come from a process-orientated background. And I say over and over again, it's not a particularly hard standard, right? I give you guides, I give you videos, I show you how to do it. So my advice would probably to say start there and then layer on top services as and when you need them. Don't necessarily go for the most expensive option thinking it's going to solve your world hunger. There are a few resources that I do give you that are out there. I've got free implementation checklists. I've got a free implementation step-by-step guide. So many free resources that you can access. If you go to my website, hightable.io, under the Learn menu item, there are blogs and guides on every clause and every control of 27001 and Annex A. There, as I say, there are free implementation guides, a huge amount of free resources on there, and you have the access to the 1 hour a week Q&A where you can throw any kind of question, technical implementation based question at me. So that is a brief guide to the 27001 certification costs. Let's summarize that. You know, a small organization, you're probably going to be looking at around about £5,000 to £8,000 to take the test. And you're probably going to be looking around about £15,000 to £20,000 if you want a consultant to help you with it. You have the option to do it for free, starting at £500. You have the option for somebody like me to coach you through it. I'm not going to talk about that, and you can approach me on it, but it is significantly cheaper than going the consultant route. So many options that are open to you. I would suggest go on my website, have a look at the blog below, lots more detail in there, FAQs, you know, consultant day rate costs, you know, a lot more information on the costs that are in there. But hopefully that has added some help and some guidance to you. I am Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. Subscribe to me because I am needy, and I look forward to talking and speaking with you on the next video blog. Peace out, everybody.